Hey everyone! So I was working on a mobswitch for my 1.8 single player world, and I thought that I should document the process for fun, and because I plan on making some more in-depth videos of this world later on. So first off, I need to gather some resources, so I have a bunch of redstone ore with me that I need to fortune because I don't have a witch farm yet. Okay, so that should be enough redstone. I did quickly want to say that I'm in a relatively early game stage at the moment, so I don't have a lot of infrastructure, and that's why things look kind of crappy. Okay, next up, I'm gonna need some slime, and again, because I don't have a slime farm, I need to head out to a swamp and get some. Now that I have all the resources needed, it's time to find a location for the switch. I found this location around 2,000 blocks out in a creative copy of the world. It's not super far, but I think it's far enough that it won't be an issue. Of course, I'll be using a spawner to get all the mobs I need, and there are actually two spawners here. I'll try to utilize them both so that I can fill up the caps pretty fast. Okay, we've arrived at the location on the actual survival world, but strangely, one of the spawners is different from the one on the creative copy. If you can remember, that one was a skeleton spawner, and this one is a spider spawner. I think dungeons in 1.8 don't have set spawner values, and the spawner type is like randomly chosen upon generation, but I could be wrong about that though, so just don't take my word for it. Luckily, the other one, the other spawner that is, was also a zombie spawner, so it'll be a little easier to set up than the spider spawner. And there we go, I built up both spawner setups. In the zombie one, they just fall into a water stream and get elevated up into a little chamber. Luckily, there's no entity cramming on 1.8, so I don't have to dig a huge hole for them to fall into. And for the spiders, they just get pushed into a wall. Unfortunately, I was unable to run both spawners at the same time because they were too far apart. So I chose to just run the zombie one. And if I ever need to add a lot more mobs to the switch, I'll just use two accounts to activate both spawners. Okay, I'm gonna go AFK and get a bunch of mobs, and in the meantime, I'll need to find a piston chunk reloader that will be used to make sure that the mobs are always loaded even after autosaves. This is the reloader that I'm gonna be using. If you don't know what this is, it is a piston-based chunk reloader, meaning it loads the chunk that it's in, and it also reloads the chunk, reloads itself after an autosave unloads the chunk. I got this particular design from a video by Wrecking Machine. I'm not sure if he's the one that designed it or not, but I'm just saying that I got it from his video, and I'll link it in the description as well in case you're interested. I'm going to use it because it's observerless, meaning it works in 1.8, and based on my testing, it's pretty reliable. I haven't had too many issues with it yet, so yeah, it should be good. Alright, so as you can see, everything pretty much has been built up, but before we actually get into what's going on, I did want to quickly say that up until this point, the video has been scripted. I was reading from a script, and it was a voiceover over a recording, because at the time of recording, I wasn't able to actually record audio, and I think it actually turned out better this way, but right now I'm not reading off from a script, so I apologize if things get a little dicey. Regardless, this is the insta line over there, about 20 chunks from here. That's how far away I put the reloader, but around 20 chunks that way, there's the reloader, and the switch is down there. I have a little leeway because the render distance is 16, but I pretty much, you don't want to cross this line because you get into possibly unloading the mob's territory over there. But anyway, yeah, they're stored in a lazy chunk. Everything's built up there. There's around 300 mobs. I pretty much just AFK'd for an hour while I went outside. And well, it wasn't exactly an hour, but yeah, when I came back, there was around 300 mobs, which is more than enough, you know, especially if I want to have like some alt accounts online. So it's good. The instant wire I'm using is a pulse wire, which isn't ideal. Pretty much, let me just show you. When you trigger it, it pulses like that, and now the mob switches off, so mobs can spawn. But it pulses like that, and that's not very ideal for this kind of situation. You know, pulse wires are you don't really want to use them that often. because you know, they're toggle based. You have to use a button for them. But anyway, I synced everything up pretty much. When this piston is retracted, it means no mobs. The mob switch is off, and when it's pushed out, when it pushes this block out, that means that mobs cannot spawn. Sorry. But I'll probably swap this out with like a redstone lamp so it's a better indicator. Yeah, this is all very ghetto. You know, I didn't have a lot of resources on hand, so I had to do with what I could, and I'll eventually in the future swap this out with a proper instant line and maybe even a beacon loader over there so that it doesn't have so many unloading problems. Which, so far, I haven't had any issues with the mob switch. In terms of loading, unloading, you know, it's worked completely fine. However, there was a little hiccup in the road. Let me just turn it back on and I can show you guys. So yeah, now it's on. Now no mobs can spawn, and I'll actually wait till it's nighttime again to show you guys. Alright, we're now at the world spawn chunks, and the reason I'm here is to tell you about a very... It's not a huge issue, but it can be pretty annoying, and that's that when you're out of the overworld for a certain amount of time, when there's no players in the overworld, after a little bit, the entire dimension unloads except for the spawn chunks. And that includes the mob switch. So if I spent too much time in the nether or the end, then it would, the overworld be unloaded, and when I came back, the mob switch would be off, so mobs could spawn. And in the newer versions, how you fix that pretty much past 1.8, how you deal with that is you have something like this. This is a dimension loader. Pretty much it sends a minecart back and forth through the end from the overworld to the nether and back. I'm not entirely sure if this is the best design for one of these. I mean, these are more used in 1.12 than anything. So, and I don't really know much about dimension loading, but I do know that you have to basically load chunks from one dimension to another in order to make sure that the dimension stays loaded. However, there is an issue. In 1.8, pretty much any version before 1.9, the nether instantly unloads. The nether does not get loaded when you throw items through another portal, which means this does not work. This does not keep the dimension loaded. There's pretty much no way to maintain chunks, to make sure that chunks are always loaded in the nether unless there's a player in the nether, because it instantly unloads whenever you try to load chunks through a portal. So basically what that means, if we hop through the portal right here, I can show you. When the entity comes through, I'm using a minecart, it gets caught on the cactus and it's supposed to cycle around, but it doesn't. It gets stuck right here because the nether isn't loaded. Basically, I can't load dimensions. I can't keep a dimension loading without having a player in the dimension. So hence this guy right here. This is an alt account. If I just pop in here, let's see. Yeah, this is an alt account that I have open right now, and pretty much he's just sits there while I want to keep the mob switch loaded, because otherwise if I leave the dimension, the mob switch will unload and I have to run all the way back there and trigger it, and that's pretty annoying. So this is the only way that I've found so far. If there is a way to somehow keep the chunks loaded in the overworld without having to have an alt account just AFKing, or just some player in the overworld, please let me know in the comments, but I don't think there is, so this is sort of my only option right now. But apart from that, that was literally the only issue that I had with the mob switch, and surprisingly, it worked first try. When I first turned it on, I was fully prepared for something to go wrong, for it to break, to unload, and I would have to troubleshoot, but no, it worked 100%, completely fine. It was fully functional. I'm really happy for that, because that's a very rare moment for me. You know, it's not often that I build something and it works first try. To demonstrate the mob switch working, I've waited until nighttime, and I'm just going to pop over here. Oh, no, that didn't work. All right, I'm gonna pop over here. Yep, as you can see, it is dark. No mobs are spawning, and yeah, it's really great. This makes building stuff so much easier, because before I'd always have to spawn proof, before I'd always have to sleep, and it's just really nice to not have to worry about mobs anymore. Mob switches are just something I can't really live without. You know, it's pretty difficult having to deal with mobs all the time, and if you can just turn it off, it's great. The funny part is I didn't even actually plan on building a mob switch anytime soon. I thought I would have to wait until I got some infrastructure ready, but one weekend I was just really bored, and I decided to work on a mob switch because I figured, hey, I have just enough resources to make a decent one that, you know, works. And it does work, and it's really nice, and I'm very happy to have it. It's a very nice thing. And that's pretty much it. I kind of just wanted to record the progress because I was a little bored and thought it would be fun to document what my progress on this world. Like I said, I do want to make more videos on this in the future. Probably not some like series or anything, but just going over some of the projects that I've worked on. I think that would be really interesting. Because this is a unique world, I'd say. You know, it's a 1.8 world. You don't really see many technical worlds that are in 1.8. At least I haven't. I know a lot of people will ask why play on such an old version, and I think I'll cover that in a later video. Sorry. But before we end off, I just sort of wanted to talk about what I have over here. First of all, and also I wanted to pose a question for you guys and see what your opinions are. So this right here is, like I said earlier, this area is my spawn chunks, right? This is the center chunk right here, where my alt account is AFKing. Spawn chunks in 1.8 are 12 by 12 chunks, or at least that's the entity loaded chunks. And then there's an outer layer of two chunks thick that is also lazy loaded chunks. And the reason I'm flattening it all out is because I want to spawn proof everything and make sure that no passive mobs get loaded or spawn in my spawn chunk, so that I can actually work around with passive mobs and maybe make a passive mob farm. It's nothing really essential early game, but I just got really bored, so I thought I'd start a digging project. And yeah, I'm just flattening this down to sea level. I'm gonna be placing a slab floor to make sure nothing can spawn. I don't think I'm gonna dig down all the way to bedrock yet, just because that's a lot of work to do, and I don't think A, that's not really necessary for me at the moment, and B, it would it's probably better to focus on more important projects. I just wanted to flatten it out and, you know, get some good digging in. Now the question that I wanted to ask you guys is, so obviously I'm playing in 1.8 and the version I'm currently in is 1.8.9. Now 1.8.1, there is an interesting bug where you can use beds to break bedrock with grass. I'm just going to demonstrate over here. So pretend that this stone block is bedrock. Pretty much what you do is you take your bed and you place it on top of a grass block, and it replaces this block right here. And so you can use that to break bedrock, and it's a very fast, very nice way of breaking bedrock. Pretty much. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so it would pretty much replace the block that's at the head of the bed when you try to place it on top of grass, which is very useful. But the problem is that is in 1.8.1, and there's a few bugs that have been introduced since then, you know, in between 1.8.1 and 1.8.9, and I'm actually going to put a list of them on the screen right now. So yeah, just I guess tell me what you think, whether you guys think it's worth downgrading. It should be pretty seamless because I've already attempted in a test world, and it's you know, it works perfectly fine. You know, everything, all the entities, pretty much there's no corruption. You know, you can downgrade very easily without any trouble. But I'm wondering if this neat little exploit is worth all the annoyances. Right, those are pretty much, I singled out the bugs that I think I'd find the most annoying in between these versions. So I guess just let me know what you guys think. I'm interested to hear it, whether I should downgrade or not. And if you want to see some more videos on this world, just let me know. In that case, I'm gonna sign off here, and goodbye. See you guys next time.